You may not necessarily be able to see all of the words tonight, but hey, we're look at the pictures. Mr. Wayne Jihan is an awesome illustrator. And this is our title page right here. And let's take a look at some of these pictures. Let me get on the page real quick. Alright, here we go. Once again, the main character for this one is going to be Radius and his cousin Purr. Young Purr sat with her uncle and aunt, Circumference and Lady Di of Immeter. Her cousin Radius was teaching her the game of inners and edges. A player makes a shape out of tiles, calling out the number of squares used, explained Radius. The first person to correctly count all the outside edges keeps those pieces. Circumference arranged his tiles into a square. Inners are 9, he said. 12 edges, counted Purr, gathering up her winnings. Lady Di made one long row of tiles. Inners again are 9, she said. And edges are 20, exclaimed Purr. I love this game. It belonged to the Countess Ariana, said Circumference. She used to live on the Isle of Immeter, just off the coast. A sea serpent is said to guard the place now, so no one dares to go there. That evening, Purr played the game by herself. She made several shapes with the tiles, thinking about the edges. With squares, I can count just one side and multiply by 4. 4 rectangles, I can add one long side and one short side together, then double it. Purr put the pieces away, noticing a picture of Immeter's castle and tiny words painted inside the box. The secret of Immeter is the name of the game. Open where inside and edges are the same. That night she dreamed about the little island and the mysterious message. Purr woke up early the next morning, determined to visit the castle and discover its secret. She tiptoed into the kitchen. Radius was already there. You're up early, he remarked. I'm going to sail out and explore the island, Purr answered. Would you like to come along? Why not? Said Radius, stuffing an orange into his pocket. The sea serpent is probably just a myth. Radius and Purr hurried down to the dock. They boarded a small sailboat and headed for Immeter. We'll be there in no time with this breeze, said Radius. Okay, so they're taking a sailboat right now, going to the island. I wonder if they're going to run into that sea monster. I see him floating beside the sailboat, but he's just relaxing. When they reached the island, they walked around the castle. They counted 7 walled-in doorways. These doorways remind me of a giant inner and edges game, said Purr. This one has 14 edges. Radius nodded and said, and 12 inners. That was fast, said Purr. I multiplied the 4 stones down the side of the 3 stones across the top, answered Radius. It's quicker than counting each one. Okay, interesting. At the fifth doorway, radius edges are also 16, said Per. The inside and the outside are the same number, remarked Radius. The inners and edges box said, open where inside and edges are the same, exclaimed Per. Could this be the entrance? She tapped on a stone and the door rumbled open. The two cousins stepped inside just as a large wave began crashing against the castle wall. Okay, they're looking for an exciting adventure right now. I'm curious what they ready to do. Per and Radius found themselves in a hall with a grand stairway. They noticed a large A in the middle of the floor. That A must stand for Ariana. Yeah, catch that, right? Ariana. I love that. I love that play on mathematical words and names, said Per. And look, there's a rhyme around the letter. Count half as many inside as out. This unlocks the towers without a doubt. Count what? Radius asked, gazing around the empty hall. How about these key shapes? Answered Per, looking at the floor. Keys unlock towers. True, keys do unlock towers. Suddenly, a window high above them shattered. In snaked the head of the sea serpent. Uh-oh. Its eyes glowed green gold, and its scales shimmered like jewels. Quick! Let's start counting. Per cried out as the creature howled at them. She pointed to the first key shape. 28 edges. 15 inner, said Radius. That's not half as many inside as out. They tried another one. 22 edges, cried Per. But only 10 inners, answered Radius. Uh-oh. I wonder if that sea monster going to get them. Hope they hurry up. Let's see what's going to happen now. Then Per found one with 24 outside edges. There are 12 squares inside. That equals half the edges, cheered Radius. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! This is the one. One of the tiles was loose. Radius lifted it up and saw a key. Yes. He grabbed it and they ran to the nearest tower. Woo! That was close, y'all. That was real close. I got excited on that one myself. They unlocked the door, ran inside, and slammed it shut. We're safe for now. Whew, gasped Per. Radius looked at the ribbon tied to the key. There are words on this, he said. Where 200 floor squares fit inside, Immeter secrets does reside. How can square tiles fit on the floor of a round room, wondered Per. That's a good question. How do squares fit into a circle? How do squares fit into a circle? That is a very, very good question. Radius shrugged his shoulders. Oh, no. Right now, I'm too hungry to think. He pulled the orange out of his pocket. He cut the fruit and gave part to Per. This slice is round like the tower floor, she said. She cut the piece into 2 halves. Then she stretched the halves out and fit them together. There! Now this circle has been reshaped into a rectangle. A lumpy, bumpy rectangle, observed Radius. So Per cut the 8 orange segments equally into 16 smaller ones. These she rearranged into a smoother rectangle. I wonder what this young lady is up to. Much better, she said. And we've already know how to figure out the inside of this shape. Right, said Radius. It's just like with the castle doorways. You multiply one long side by one short side. Halfway around the orange slice is the same as long side, observed Purr. And the length of an orange segment is about the same as the short side. So, we just multiply the two measurements to get to the inner of the circle. Interesting. Purr looked around the room. Imagine that floor is a giant orange slice that I've cut and stretched out. Halfway around is the same as the long side of the rectangle. So I need to measure the distance around half of the tower. Purr's boot was the same length as the square stone tile. She counted off 22 steps around the top half of the room. I also have to measure the distance from the edge of the room to its center, said Purr. That would be like the short side of the rectangle. She stepped off 7 squares. Radius multiplied the two measurements. 22 times 7 equals 154, he said. That's not enough, replied Purr. We define a room with 200 floor squares. Hey, let's keep looking. You think they're going to find what they're looking for? They're looking for a room with 200 floor squares. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Guess who's back? Back again. What about the sea serpent? Asked Radius. They cautiously opened the door. Everything was quiet. Shh. Let's go, said Purr. Together, they scrambled up a ladder and ran across a high walkway. Down below, the sea serpent erupted out of the water. Reaching up to grab them, it crashed into the stones. The walkway collapsed into the sea just as Radius and Purr entered the second tower. Woo! Another close one, y'all. Almost got him again. That was a close call, said Purr, catching her breath. Whew. They climbed up the spiral staircase. At the top, Purr and Radius found themselves in a bell tower. I don't think the sea serpent can reach us here, said Purr. Let's hope not, answered Radius, peering over the edge. Sounds like Purr and Radius a little nervous. Hopefully the serpent can't reach that high, but you never know. Immediately, Purr counted off 25 boot lengths around half of the outside edge of the room. She then counted another 8 steps from the edge to the floor's center. Okay. 25 times 8 equals 200 squares. All right now, she said. This is the place. Now, what do we do? Look, said Radius, pointing to the words on the ceiling. Oh, okay. The squares in the circle are the secret's key. Use the number to signal the sea. This bell could be the signal, said Purr, pulling on the rope. Radius covered his ears and counted as Purr rang it 200 times. Ring, 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 ring. Woo. I don't think I could take that. Uh-oh. Guess who's back? Back again. After the last peal, the ocean began churning and foaming. The monster rose up from the depth and faced Per. So I guess it could reach that far. She stood before it, trying not to tremble. I guess she was nervous. The creature's jaws opened, and Per could see rows of gleaming teeth. Somebody looking for dinner, aren't they? Huh? Huh. Wait a minute. Something falling out the thing mouth. Out of his mouth dropped a jeweled locket. Per caught it. Inside was a note. The Isle of Immeter is yours to keep. The palimpsests will protect you awake or asleep. The note was signed by the Countess Anna. Are you the palimpsest? Per asked the creature. The sea serpent snorted and bowed before her. Oh, wow. So he wasn't so scary after. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So he's not that scary at all. So now they're sitting on top of the sea serpent. Radius and Per returned to the mainland, riding on the palimpsest. Cumference and Lady Di spotted them from the castle and rushed down to greet them. "Mercy upon us!" they exclaimed. "You're riding on a sea serpent!" "We've had an amazing adventure," said Per. "Tell us all about it," said her uncle and aunt. "We unlocked the secret of the castle," said Radius. "Per is now the rightful owner of the Isle of Immeter. We had to find a round tower room that contained exactly 200 floor squares," added Per. "We discovered that if you multiply the distance halfway around a circle by the distance from its edge to the center, you'll know how many squares could fit inside it." Cumference smiled. "So 1/2 of the circumference times the radius equals the inside of a circle. Wonderful." The next day, Cumference and Lady Di held a special celebration for Per. People from miles and miles around attended. On behalf of the Countess Anna, I pronounce you Lady Per of Immeter, said Cumference. This adventure has taken you full circle. Play on words, I love it. Per curtsied. "Thank you," she said. "I'm really good now at counting edges." "Ha ha!" Cumference laughed. "So you are." "So you are. For this reason, the outside edge of any flat, straight-sided shape shall be called the perimeter. After you." "What should we call the inside of the shapes?" asked Lady Di. "Let's call it area," suggested Per, in honor of Countess Anna and her amazing floors. And everyone burst into a round of applause. Quick end note. In the story, Lady Per of Immeter used an orange slice to figure out the area of a circle. She reshaped the slices into a rectangle where 1/2 of its circumference was the length and the radius was its width. by playing the game of inners and edges. Per also learned that the area of the rectangle equals its length multiplied by its width, which we call A equals length times width, or A area equals length times width, which is A equals L times W. And that's, I said before, we was talking about the area of a rectangle or a square as well too. But here's some other information they were talking about as well too in the story. Armed with these two ideas, Per discovered that the inside area of a circle could be figured out by multiplying 1/2 of the circumference by its radius. That could be written as area is 1/2 times the circumference times the radius. Once again, the area of a circle is 1/2 times the circumference times the radius. The standard formula for the area of a circle is A equals pi r squared. The following steps illustrate how to move from Per's formula to the standard one. The circumference C of a circle is equal to pi multiplied by its diameter. C circumference and the dragon of pi. That was my first book that I learned about this. Since one diameter equals 2 radii, D equals 2r. 2r can be substituted for D. Per use 1/2 of the circumference of the orange for the length pi r, or her rectangle. She used one side of an orange section as its width r. Then she multiplied these two measurements to find its area A. And that's how she got A equals pi r times r. Any number multiplied by itself is squared. R times r equals r squared. The standard formula for calculating the area of a circle is A equals pi r squared. Okay? So basically they were just talking about our circle tonight. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book. Tonight, our book for tonight was A Math Adventure, Circumference, and the Isle of Immeter. A play on words for perimeter. And so we was talking about the area and perimeter of rectangles, and also talking about the area and perimeter of circles. Once again, this book is written by Cindy Nushinwander and illustrated by Wayne G. Hahn. I ask you to continue looking at this series right here. I said in this series they have about 10 to 12 books. I got discovered about this when I was in middle school and got really, really excited about this. And I didn't know that all of these different books existed. So I encourage each and every one of you to do the same. All right, tonight's topic I want to talk about